everyone. Welcome to the Lenders Podcast. Today, we'll be talking seller financing with Dennis Doss. And here we go. Let's get right to it.
Hi, I'm Aletha Nelson, Vice President of DossDocs, the leading on-demand loan document platform built by the nation's leading mortgage law firm, Doss Law. And with me today is Dennis Doss, founder of DossDocs and founder and managing partner of Doss Law. Dennis is one of the most experienced, if not the most experienced mortgage attorney in the country. Dennis, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, hi, Aletha, and thank you for everybody for joining us today. I've been a mortgage lawyer for 47 years. I represent a large segment of the private money lending industry in California and across the nation. I've been a licensed real estate broker since 2016. I am the founder of Doss Law LLP, one of the nation's most well-known mortgage law firms, and I am the creator and founder and coder of DossDocs.com, an online mortgage document company. I also serve as an expert witness in many cases involving mortgage law topics. So that's about me.
Well, thanks for being here today, Dennis. So we're curious, are people really sitting on 2.5% mortgages and not selling, even when they want to?
It's a real problem in America. The Wall Street Journal recently coined a new term for it. It's called the golden handcuffs. That is, you're sitting on a very low interest rate mortgage and you don't want to give it up, because you don't want to jump into a 6.5% mortgage, which would, increase your monthly payment pretty substantially. And it's stifling mobility in the United States. People can't move up, can't move down, can't move somewhere else because this mortgage, which is wonderful, but it's also an anchor tied to their ankles to keep them from going somewhere else. So with today's rates at 6.5%, it's kind of daunting for someone to give up a 2.5% or 3% mortgage to take on something twice as high. So that is the problem that we're facing as a country today. They don't realize that the mortgage is really an asset that can be utilized with the right structure. So the solution is to transfer your property subject to or with the existing mortgage on it to the buyer, and have the buyer give you a mortgage back for a higher interest rate and a higher payment, but still a much better rate than the buyer would get in the open marketplace. So you sort of mark up that low interest rate mortgage to a little bit higher mortgage.
So how would that actually work?
Well, it's done with a mortgage instrument that's been around for a long, long time called a wraparound or all-inclusive mortgage. By example, let's say the seller has a 2.5% mortgage. They would offer the buyer a 5% mortgage. So that each month the buyer would send a payment to the seller for the 5%. The seller would pay their bank the 2.5% and take that difference to offset the costs of a 6.5% mortgage, which would effectively bring their rate on that new property, their new home, to a 5% rate, which is probably higher than some people would like, but still it's a pretty good rate historically. So in essence, it's a win-win for both the buyer and the seller. The buyer is in a 5% rate, and the seller is now effectively a 4% rate at the end of the day. So it's a win-win for both.
Yeah. So you're saying the seller would basically step in as the lender at a better rate than the buyer could get from a traditional lender like a bank or credit union.
Exactly. And the seller makes a profit on that spread between the buyer paid rate and the bank paid rate, and again could use that to offset the costs of a new mortgage.
That's great. Dennis, can you list out the benefits to the seller and buyer?
Yes, for the seller, I just mentioned the benefit of the markup of the money and the ability to profit on the existing mortgage. And because the seller is collecting the payments from the buyer and paying them to their mortgage company, they can verify the payments are being made on time. so to preserve their credit. For the buyer, instead of going out into the marketplace at 6.5%, they'll have a 5% mortgage, for example, and they still maintain the income tax deductibility of the mortgage interest that they're paying the seller. So it's good for them that way. So it allows them to enjoy a reduced rate until interest rates drop below the rate that they're paying to the seller. At that point, they can refinance and pay the seller off completely and pay off the old mortgage completely. So,
All right. So there's clearly some big upsides for both the seller and the buyer. But I know everyone's thinking the same thing right now. What could go wrong?
well, yeah, there are some risks. I mean, the first one is the buyer doesn't pay, obviously. I mean, the remedy there is the seller would foreclose, and it's a mortgage, so the seller has the ability to foreclose on the buyer and take the property back if the buyer doesn't pay the mortgage current. So that's one remedy. So that risk exists. The second one is these loans contain what's called a due on sale clause or due on transfer clause, and that gives the bank the option to call the loan due if there's been a transfer of title.
Mhm.
Now, the probability of that is very, very small. These loans are held by servicers, and many of them are held by a company called Fannie Mae, the largest aggregator of these mortgages. And they don't have a mandate to go out and find transfers of title to call loans. They are required to call the loans if they discover a transfer of title. So there is a risk that a bank would discover somehow there's been a transfer of title and then call the loan. And the answer there is that the buyer would have to refinance the mortgage and pay it off. But the risk of that is relatively small. Only a very, very small percentage of loans get called for due on sale. And from the bank's perspective, they're still getting the monthly payment from the seller every month. So there's really nothing to trigger any type of discovery by them.
That's good to know. One more question, Dennis. If someone's ready to actually structure a deal like this, what can they do?
Well, the first thing they want to do is talk to their real estate agent, maybe talk to their lawyer, and maybe share the information in this video and the articles on our website with them and discuss it, whether it's something that they'd be comfortable doing. And then if they are, we provide a loan documentation solution in all 50 states for $4.99 per transaction. You enter your information in and you get beautiful documents that are all Fannie Mae standard type documents that contain all the provisions that we believe would be helpful to protect the buyer and the seller in these type of all-inclusive or wrap transactions. So it's a do-it-yourself solution. You enter the website, you enter the information, you get your documents instantaneously. Again, but work with your professionals before doing a all-inclusive or wrap mortgage.
Dennis, thanks for taking the time to walk us through this.
Well, thank you, and have a great afternoon.
Yeah, thanks so much. If you'd like to access our on-demand seller financing docs, it's easy. Like Dennis said, just go to DossDocs.com and pick your state. You could follow us on LinkedIn and subscribe to our YouTube channel to continue to receive updates. Thanks for joining us today.